Okay guys, this is going to be the last video for linear quadratics for a little while, because in IM2 we'll be teaching this probably a little bit before Christmas time. So let's get started here. So if you look at this one, guys, you will notice I have a quadratic again. See that squared right there? And this you will soon recognize as a circle. Okay? And so let's go ahead and solve this system. What we're anticipating here, guys, is basically we'll have a circle, and then we'll have a quadratic kind of do this or like that. This one's positive, so actually it'll go up, and it should cross at like 2 points. Okay? So let's see if it actually works out. So how would we solve this one? Well, notice, guys, how the first equation's already y equals this. So we're going to put it in for y in the second equation and see what happens. So we'll have x squared, that's that right there, plus parentheses, we're going to put in 2x squared minus 4 for the y. We still have a plus 4. And then we have a square right there equal to 5. Now what's going to happen that's really cool, if you haven't noticed this, see that 4 minus 4? That so conveniently happens to be 0, right? So now what do we have? We have an x squared right there, plus we have just that, 2x squared. Now don't forget it's still squared, equal to 5. And so, following PEMDAS, I'm going to go ahead and do this squared next. So I'm going to have an x squared plus 4x to the 4 equal to 5. And this is looking pretty scary, isn't it? Okay, so let's go on to another page. So we just left off with x squared plus 4x4 equal to 5. Let's just double check that. Okay, so what can we do here? And this is going to be really weird, guys. Let's rearrange it. Let's actually also go ahead and minus 5 both sides. This is going to freak out some of you guys. But I have a 4x4 plus an x squared. So basically I took that first and I put the x squared there. And then of course I have that right there. Minus 5 equal to 0. Okay, now what? Well, guys, we're going to do something that we haven't learned a lot yet, called factoring. Okay, for example, see that 4x4 there? What happens if I do 2x squared times 2x squared? Isn't that a 4x4? And the 5 has to be 1 times 5, right? Now, looking at that, that's not working out. So, let me start over again. I'm now going to try 4x squared times an x squared, because that's also 4x4. And I'm going to take that 5 and do 5 times 1. And let's see what happens here. Isn't that inside 5x squared? Isn't 1 times 4x squared 4x squared? And I can get that plus x squared if I do, watch the yellow, a positive 5 minus 4, right? So I'm going to do a plus 5 to get my plus 5. Minus there, the minus 1 times 4. If I take that times that, will give me my minus 4x squared. Okay, so let me kind of clean this up a little bit. So long story short, guys, I know that 4x squared plus 5 times x squared minus 1. Now remember, it equals 0. So now I can do the 0 property. And so therefore, let's see what I get. Okay, so I'm going to probably need some more room, so let's go to another page. So we had 4x squared plus 5 times x squared minus 1 equal to 0, right? Let me just double check that. Okay, so what would make this 0? Well, notice if I took 4x squared plus 5, set it equal to 0, once I minus 5 both sides, I'll have 4x squared equal to negative 5. Dividing by 4, x squared equals negative 5/4. And right there, guys, I can't get a real answer, right? Because if I take the square root of both sides, right there, I'm going to get a square root of a negative. So our first binomial right there is not going to give us any real answer. However, if we look here, I know x squared minus 1 equals 0. If x squared equals 1, again, all I really did was add 1 to both sides. And if x squared equals 1, once I do the square root, x must equal either positive 1 or negative 1. The square root of 1 is 1 or negative 1, right? So we have two possible real answers. So now what? Well, let's go back to our first original equation right there. Okay, now remember that we just discovered that x could equal 1, right? Or x could equal negative 1. Well, let's plug them in. So if I plug this in there, I will get 2 times 1 squared minus 4. 1 squared 1 times 2 is 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So I now know that x equals 1, I'm down here, guys, gives me negative 2. That's one possible solution. Now let's take this negative 1 and do the same thing. So we're going to end up with 2x squared, or sorry, let's plug in the negative 1, right? So we're going to plug in that negative 1. So 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4. Well, that's 2 times 1 minus 4. And 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So we end up with negative 1 being negative 2. And we have two real answers. And as you saw before, we have two unreal answers, which right now we don't really care about. So do those two real answers make sense? Well, let's look at that graph, guys. As you can see, I have a circle, as we talked about. I have a parabola intersecting the circle. And notice it crosses on the right side at 1, negative 2, and on the left side at negative 1, negative 2. And that is exactly what we got here and there. So guys, this is a very intense video. I would have to say, students, IM3, you better learn how to do these quadratics like this very well. IM2, I honestly would never give you a quadratic with another quadratic system like this one. But hopefully you watched and learned something from it. Okay? So, again, until next time, bye.